Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Outlook. Today is May 5th. It is the first Weekly Outlook of the month, which means this goes public to all of YouTube. If you'd like to see this every week and be updated, you can join the Discord. The link is in the description below. And we stay up to date on all the charts and what the markets are doing. This week is actually very special. I'm seeing some things that are telling me that we are going to start going in a specific direction. And I am becoming fully bullish pretty much on everything again. We got the pullback that we were looking for, and I don't think it went as deep as everybody wanted, and that's usually what happens. And I think we can now resume back up higher. Looking at the dollar, it tanked right back through our R1 pivot here, coming back to the weekly EMA fairly quickly. It said, nope, we're not going any higher than this, came back down. I think we could see as low as 104.27 in the 21 EMA again. As soon as that happens, what you're going to see is that this has just been sideways. So just because we broke trend, it gave us a dip in the markets over the last month on equities, but it's returning back down lower again. And overall, this entire movement has just been sideways, and markets like sideways. So we can venture sideways here forever, and that trend doesn't matter anymore. What would matter is if we broke back above that R1. Then I would say, okay, we're going to start heading higher. This is an accumulation, and this is going to start heading for the highs again. But as long as we remain under that R1, I'm fairly confident that this is going to start heading back lower again. We'll probably get a trend retest at some point. Then we'll start to see, okay, what's it going to do from that point? Do we start bouncing up higher and make a higher high, or do we break back down below trend? Of course, we would like to see this break back down below trend. Looking at the S&P, we closed over the daily pivot pretty confidently, and now we have our trend here that we're touching. We opened up with a gap up on the S&P, and it's just rejecting the trend, filling that gap currently as we speak. I think that we could see as low as 51.21 again for a retest of some sort. It's going to be pretty volatile, more than likely. Notice that our MACD and our RSI are still a little bit bearish territories. We are getting the crosses here that we want to see to start resuming that bullish momentum. And I think that once this trend breaks, we're going to go see new all-time highs on the S&P. Same thing for the Nasdaq. There's a lot of room here for this to move up. So if I was going to long something, I'd probably wait for a little bit of a retest down here around these levels where the candles, are closing. 17,920, maybe just shy of 1,800 or 18,000. That would be the level of support that I would expect to see hold this week, and then maybe start heading up higher. You can see there's a lot more room on the Nasdaq than there is the S&P, right? So I would be more keen on taking some shorter term option calls on the Nasdaq and use this R1 as my target over the next couple of weeks. Let's see, the Dow Jones. Dow Jones had a huge gap up last week and then held it, so we could get a little bit of a pullback to start the week as traders are, probably entering longs at the end of last week, and they're going to need to be shaken out a little bit. But we have this nice support here on the pivot at 384 for the ETF that tracks the Dow Jones, so I expect to see that hold. I don't think we're going to go any lower than that. Those levels that I'm indicating, if we do go lower and I'm wrong, then that invalidates my thesis and we are going to start heading lower again. But as long as we are holding these levels that have broken last week, I think we're going to be okay. I assume up because our weekly charts are still bullish. There's nothing indicating here that we are bearish. This is just a correction, pullback, and bounce. We're back up over this pivot on the weekly. We're back over the EMAs. On the weekly for the Nasdaq and for the S&P. They're both doing the same thing. We're back over the 8 EMA on the weekly. This is just a normal pullback. You can see this happen quite often in bull markets, and I'll go back here just to kind of show you. But you'll get these dips down to the 21, and then we resume up. Dip to the 21, resume up. Dip, up, dip, up. This is just how it goes. So when you see this, everyone's real scared. But this is when you want to be buying things in a bull market. 21 EMAs on the weekly are buying opportunities in bull markets. And the same thing applies to Bitcoin and crypto. So if we're looking at the weekly on Bitcoin, and I know there's some weird lines here, but they mostly apply to my daily chart, so I'm going to try to suffer through this. But you'll see this perfect 21 EMA touch last week. I mean, it's perfect. It doesn't get any closer than that. And then this huge wick back up, and we actually closed the week green. I don't think anybody expected that. I kind of didn't expect that either. But when you see something that aggressive and a move back up, that is bullish. And now we're breaking the downtrend on Bitcoin. If you see the trend here, we got 1, 2, and now we're working on our third daily candle closing up over. We got this little bit of resistance here at the pivot, and I think we're going to bust that fairly quickly. We could get a retrace back down to retest this trend again, and notice where the 8 EMA is at the same point of the trend. So right now that's falling around 63K, which, you know, isn't much. It's like a little bit over 1%, back down for a retest, and that would be another place to long with tight stops below. If you're gonna long, which, you know, we just did in the Discord recently, I'm going to be using the previous cycle's 1.618, which is this red dotted line. I think that we are going to hold that. If we fall back below that point, then okay, we can start talking about bearish and lower lows. But as long as we hold 62K, I think we're going to be just fine. I don't think this is a good market to short, especially after breaking trends. And if you want to short, at least wait for 62K to break. That's all I'm saying. Other than that, I'm bullish. Looking at total market cap, it's also breaking trend and trying to get over that daily pivot. If we look at the weekly, notice how we've closed every weekly candle over this R3 pivot here. It has not closed a candle below. All of these candle bodies are above, right? So this is another bullish indication that I'm seeing. Looking at total 3, it's doing a little bit better actually than the overall total market cap. It has closed consecutive candles now over the pivot, over trend, and now we just got to get up over this 618, and then there's a lot of room here for altcoins to move. So I do think that altcoins can do well. Again though, notice how we're still below center on the MACD and the RSI. There's still a little bit of work to do here, so it could be kind of choppy up for a while before we get that big move. But who knows, it's crypto, it can just start blasting higher. That's just what it does. If we look at stablecoin dominance, this is the biggest indicator to me that we are going to go lower on this chart. If you're not familiar with stablecoin dominance, when this chart goes down, crypto goes up. When this chart goes up, crypto goes down. And this is a gravestone doji, and quite a large one. We rejected that S1 pivot, we rejected the downtrend, and this is all starting to show me trend reversal is coming back down. So at the very least, I can see us tapping our all-time trend line again, which is a ways away. And we could continue doing this motion until this does break finally. If we break this white trend line, and I'm going to zoom all the way out so you can see where I got this from. Oh, I have to use the log chart for that, or the linear chart. But this is the main all-time trend for USDT. And several weeks ago, I pointed out that we were touching this and that it's very likely that we're going to get pullbacks. And so far, we definitely got that over the last couple months. But now I'm seeing this coming back down, at least to the trend line. If we see this trend line break, then, you know, that's probably going to be an insane bull market. We'll see what happens when we get there. Stay tuned. But I don't, you know, that's a ways away. But I do think that we're going to head back down there. If we look at Ethereum, there's quite a few things going on here. It's definitely not as strong as Bitcoin still. It's still having trouble. These ribbons are, you know, numerous simple moving averages that I use, and I use the clouds to help me see bullishness and bearishness. So it's still got some work to do to turn this orange cloud back to blue, which is just the 20 moving average and the 50 moving average. And when they cross each other, they change colors. But our 100 and 200 day moving averages are still doing just fine. We have a nice big bull flag here, and I think that when Ethereum breaks this bull flag or the 50-day moving average, which are very, very closely together right here in this zone here around 3280, I think once we break that, we're going to see the next leg up on Ethereum, and it's just going to blast. And the targets are way up here, right, for the main bull run. Now, I'm probably going to go safe and say 1.272, start taking some profits, because each cycle gets a little bit less and less returns, right? So I want to start taking profits at the lower end of the take profit zone. And then if it breaks back over, great. We'll just take profits again at the next one and continue that until the 1.618. And if that just so happens to get up here, I'm just selling everything. I don't mess around with high time frame 1.618s. I take profits every single time without question. So with that, let's look at Ethereum against Bitcoin. You can see we're still in a downtrend, but we also still have this bullish divergence here. So while it keeps like pittering around this 0.05 level, I'm still under the assumption that this is eventually going to have one of those huge days and break back up over all of this. When that day comes, I have no idea when it's going to be, but I do anticipate it happening. This is invalidated if we break back down and this trend on the RSI breaks down lower. Bitcoin against the Nasdaq. This is another fun one to look at. So when we look at Bitcoin against the Nasdaq, you can see we're flirting with the all-time highs here as well, and that is our current resistance. If we zoom in, we'll also see a very close to 21 EMA touch, which is that purple line. And then we have to get back up over that 8 in order for Bitcoin to start outperforming the Nasdaq again. In the meantime, the Nasdaq's been doing very well against Bitcoin, and that shows in this chart. But I'm going to be looking for a weekly close back up over that 8 EMA here shortly, hopefully. All right, so I think that covers all the majors. I'm going to go into chart requests, and I do 2 separate videos for that when I do the monthly public YouTube video. So I'm going to end this video here, and I will post the recording for all of our chart requests in the Discord as well. But please give me a like and a subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. All of the links for what I have to offer are in the description. I'd love to have you join us. And thanks for watching. Have a good one.